Did you ever wonder what it would feel like to be the most powerful person in an empire and still be afraid of one quiet stranger in the room? Imagine you are an emperor, your palace is guarded, your soldiers are loyal, your throne room is filled with marble, gold, banners, and people bowing when you walk past. From the outside you look untouchable, then a servant pours your drink. A guard stands a little too close, a messenger arrives with a sealed letter, and suddenly power feels fragile, because across history some of the most feared enemies were not giant armies, they were secret groups, hidden networks, palace insiders, spies, assassins, and silent killers who understood one terrifying truth: an empire can be enormous, but a ruler is still just one body. Before we go deeper, like and subscribe if you enjoy dark stories about ancient power, lost worlds, secret groups, and the strange ways humans used fear to control history. The first group takes us into the mountains of Persia and Syria. The Hashashin became one of the most famous assassin groups in history. Their real background was religious and political, connected to the Nizari Ismailis, but their reputation became legendary because of how they used fear. They did not need to meet armies in open fields to shake kingdoms. They could aim for one important target: a ruler, a general, a political enemy. The nightmare was precision. If you were a powerful man surrounded by guards, you might believe the crowd below you was harmless. Then one person stepped forward at the right moment, close enough to strike. That was the power of the Hashashin reputation. They made leaders imagine danger in every doorway. Their mountain fortresses, especially places like Alamut, added to the myth. A hidden stronghold, trained followers, political enemies who could be reached even when they thought they were protected. The next group used a different kind of fear, the fear of crowds. In Roman-controlled Judea, the Sicaria became known for using small hidden daggers. Their name is linked to the Latin word for dagger, and their attacks were often associated with crowded public spaces. Picture a busy city, people praying, trading, talking, walking shoulder to shoulder. A Roman official or local collaborator moves through the crowd believing the danger is far away. Then someone gets close. The strike is fast. The attacker disappears into the human noise around him. That is what made the Sicaria terrifying. They turned public life into a place of suspicion. A marketplace, a festival, or a religious gathering could suddenly become a trap. For an empire like Rome, which depended on order and visibility, that kind of hidden violence was deeply unsettling. In Japan, fear took another form through the ninja clans of Iga and Koga. The modern image of ninjas is full of legend, costumes, and exaggeration, but behind the myth were real skills that mattered in a world of castles, rival lords, and constant political danger. Spying, disguise, sabotage, surprise attacks, getting information from places where ordinary soldiers could not go. A samurai army was visible. Armor, banners, horses, formations, and honor all made power dramatic. Ninja worked through the opposite idea. A person who looked harmless might be carrying information. A gate might open because someone had already entered in disguise. A castle might fall because the real battle began before anyone saw soldiers approaching. To a ruler, that was a different kind of terror. You can prepare for an army on the road. It is much harder to prepare for someone already inside the walls. Ancient Rome had another feared group, and this one is especially disturbing because they were created to protect the ruler. The Praetorian Guard stood close to the emperor. They guarded the palace, controlled access, and lived near the center of power. But closeness is dangerous. The person who protects your life also knows exactly how vulnerable you are. Over time, the Praetorian Guard became involved in Roman politics, plots, pressure, and assassinations. Some emperors depended on them, others feared them. In certain moments, they helped decide who ruled and who disappeared. That made them more than bodyguards. They became kingmakers, and sometimes king-breakers. For a Roman emperor, the frightening question was simple: are these men protecting me or calculating when I become easier to replace? Sparta had its own shadowy system of fear. The Cryptia is one of the darkest institutions connected to Spartan society. Ancient sources describe it as a secretive practice involving young Spartan men sent out to watch, intimidate, and sometimes kill helots, the enslaved people who supported the Spartan state. Sparta looked disciplined and powerful from the outside. Its warriors became symbols of toughness, training, and military order. Yet that system depended on controlling a much larger oppressed population. The Cryptia shows how fear can be used inside a society, not just against foreign enemies. For the helots, danger did not only come during war, it could come at night, from young men trained by the state, moving through the countryside as a warning. The message was brutal: resistance has a cost. This kind of hidden violence helped maintain a society that was always afraid of the people it controlled. In the Ottoman Empire, palace politics created another terrifying world. One of the most chilling traditions associated with the Ottoman court involves palace executioners, including stories of mute executioners used for sensitive killings. Some details come through later accounts and court traditions, but the fear behind them is easy to understand. Inside a palace, death could arrive quietly. A powerful official might be honored one day and doomed the next. A prince could become a threat simply by existing. A rival might fall because the ruler's trust shifted. The danger was not always public chaos. Sometimes it was procedure, a message, an order, a silent figure, and the knowledge that palace power had turned against you. This made the court itself feel dangerous. The closer you stood to the throne, the more valuable you became, and the more disposable. Venice offers a different version of secret power. The Council of Ten was a powerful governing body in the Venetian Republic, created to protect the state from threats, conspiracies, betrayal, and internal danger. They were not assassins in the classic sense. Their weapon was secrecy. Venice was rich, connected, and full of merchants, diplomats, spies, and rival interests. Information was power, and the Council of Ten became associated with investigations, surveillance, secret decisions, and harsh punishments. That kind of fear works slowly. People fear the blade, but they also fear being watched. They fear a name whispered behind a closed door. They fear a letter opened before it arrives. They fear a trial they cannot understand. The Council of Ten shows that secret groups do not always need to hide in caves or strike in crowds. Sometimes the most frightening secret group sits inside the government and calls itself protection. Byzantium had a different kind of hidden danger: palace conspirators. The Byzantine Empire was full of ceremony, religion, wealth, and imperial theater. The emperor stood beneath symbols of divine authority, surrounded by ritual, robes, gold, and incense. Yet behind that sacred image, politics could be deadly. Generals, court officials, family members, guards, eunuchs, religious factions, and ambitious rivals all moved through a world where access mattered more than brute strength. In Byzantium, a smile could be strategy, a marriage could be a weapon, a religious argument could become political, a trusted advisor could become the center of a plot. There was no single secret order behind every conspiracy, but that made the fear worse. The danger was a culture of hidden alliances where the ruler had to read the room before the room turned against him. And finally, there were the intelligence networks of the Mongol Empire. The Mongols are remembered for speed, horses, archery, and conquest, but information was one of their greatest weapons. Before armies arrived, spies, scouts, merchants, envoys, and informants could gather knowledge about roads, cities, defenses, politics, and weaknesses. That made Mongol power feel almost supernatural to enemies. An empire might believe it was facing riders from far away. In reality, those riders may already know the city gates, the rival factions, the food supply, and the fear inside the walls. The Mongols showed that terror does not always begin with attack. Sometimes it begins with knowing too much. That is what connects all of these groups. The Hashishin made leaders fear precision. The Sikari made crowds dangerous. The ninja made invisibility useful. The Praetorians turned protection into a threat. The Cryptia used fear to control the oppressed. Ottoman executioners made palace silence terrifying. The Council of Ten turned secrecy into government power. Byzantine conspirators showed how close betrayal could get. And Mongol networks proved that information could break an empire before the first arrow flew. Different worlds, different methods, same lesson. Power is never as safe as it looks. A throne can be guarded, a palace can be locked, a city can be surrounded by walls. But if the enemy can hide as a servant, a guard, a messenger, a spy, or a friend, then even the mightiest empire has a weakness. And that may be the most disturbing truth of ancient power. Rulers built monuments to look eternal. Secret groups reminded them they were human.